The UAP/UFO disclosure movement has been really kicking up over the past year. There have been congressional hearings in the United States, headlining whistleblowers such as David Grush and others. The list of people who have been connected to and working with the extraterrestrial materials, crafts, and captured aliens seems to be growing each month. And, of course, there has been pushback. A recent bill that was designed to force disclosure was working its way through Congress, with the backing of key members of the House and Senate, as well as the White House. But it was stripped of its essential elements once it got into committee in the House of Representatives. Key to this turn of events was opposition by Representative Mike Turner, chair of the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence in the U.S. House of Representatives. There were also members of the armed services who opposed the bill. Some of those who oppose disclosure have defense contractors in their districts. And, of course, the U.S. military is the place where all or most of the disclosure information has to come from. And many in the military work in compartmentalized environments where they know only so much, and their jobs are to protect the secrecy related to what they know. If the information gets released, their jobs would be jeopardized. Self-interest is at the core of everything. But how do we sort this out? Remember always that Farsight is data-driven. We don't rely on any he said, she said stuff. We don't tell you that we have been briefed by so-and-so or that we heard the truth from a reliable source. All that can be manipulated. We only rely on our own data, collected by our own highly trained remote viewers, and our remote viewers do all of their work totally blind. We show you the raw data, corroborating reports, and then you can look at those data and make up your own mind. Now, before we jump into how others are being manipulated, take a minute to consider how you are being manipulated. Friends, do you fully understand why the disclosure process is so important? We at Farsight have long shown in our many projects how this planet is being run as a prison. And disclosure is the only way this prison system can be fully dismantled. When you hear things like, "The Bad ETs have been chased off this planet by a valiant ET hero and his trusted deputy," are you really so gullible to believe that? The Bad ETs have conquered entire sections of this galaxy. They cannot be dislodged by anything less than a full-bodied rebellion of the prison population itself. Only then can the good ETs intervene in a productive manner to free everyone. When it happens, it will be a big thing. No one will miss it. And when you hear that all of the ETs are benevolent and truly wishing to share their free energy technology with Earth humans, don't you see that this simply gets you to accept your fate as a prisoner on this planet by getting you to focus on things that might possibly improve your prisoner lives a tad bit? And when you hear that your warm galactic brothers and sisters are waiting for you to simply accept your galactic citizenship, don't you see that you are being manipulated into thinking that good times are just ahead and that there is no real war going on to keep you imprisoned? Through every possible venue, you are seeing efforts to manipulate and control you, and it is so hard for Earth humans to know the truth as long as you rely on what other people say they know or heard. He said, she said information is the primary tool of those who want to control you. The controllers can always find people who look respectable to feed you information that will keep you in your place. Now, the disclosure story gets deeper when you think about what the extraterrestrials themselves are doing. Let's put this into perspective. Farsight has done a host of projects in which we have identified two major groupings of extraterrestrials. Loosely, we call them the good ETs and the bad ETs. The bad ETs dominate in the Earth environment. They control, directly or indirectly, all of the important political, military, and commercial leadership. The control can occur in a variety of different ways. Sometimes it is done through the mental manipulation of the human leaders. Now, Professor David M. Jacobs has also written about how this is being done in his book, Walking Among Us. Now, we at Farsight have found that this manipulation can happen in a variety of ways. It can be through telepathic manipulation of the thoughts of the leaders, but it can also be through the manipulation of those who surround the leaders, such as their advisors. The control can also occur through all other means, including bribery and threats. One way or another, the bad ETs operate freely on this planet because of the control that they exert over the planetary human leadership. If all of this sounds far-fetched to you, and if you are inclined to simply dismiss it all as a conspiracy theory, I want to remind you that these are the conclusions to be drawn from a great many public projects that we have conducted at Farsight, all of which are accessible to anyone who wants to watch them. All I am doing now is summarizing some of these conclusions. Farsight is data-driven. I am not pulling these ideas out of thin air. And of course, since the bad ETs are controlling the human leadership show, this means that the good ETs have been locked out of human leadership. This planet is essentially being run as a prison by the bad ETs, and they view this planet and its huge human population as a great resource that feeds a very extensive human trafficking operation that serves a great many of their very diverse needs. But maintaining a planetary prison population is not simple, and the science of how to do this is very advanced. In our galaxy, planetary populations are controlled primarily by manipulating the population psychologically, by controlling the information that they know. They are not controlled by locking everybody up behind bars. The best prisons are those in which the prisoners help enforce their own imprisonment. The strategies involve everything from creating non-stop wars and crises to distract the population from focusing on who is really pulling the strings, manipulating all sorts of information outlets to manage the type of information that is released through all venues, to working with the political establishment to prevent meaningful disclosure information from being disseminated to the masses. It's a big job, one in which the bad ETs are exceptionally well trained to do. And when disclosure does try to break through, the content is dumbed down into questions such as, does this mean we're not alone in the universe? And just as bad, sources of disclosure content are often manipulated into stating that the ETs are all benevolent or good, waiting to embrace humanity with open arms. And the only bad guys are corrupt political, industrial, and military people who are doing all the bad stuff by keeping their cash cow control over tech and energy stuff. I know who these people are who are being manipulated, but it does no good to point fingers at specific individuals for a host of reasons. So at Farsight, we normally tell our audience what is happening generally, point out what to look for, and then rely on our audience to make the associations with the specific individuals involved. Well, the good ETs want to break down this prison, to release everyone. Many in the human population are friends and relatives of the good ETs. But to break down the prison walls, since it is a psychologically based prison, requires that the population hear the full truth about what is going on and what has been happening to this planet for literally thousands of years. In short, the disclosure process is essential to the plan to free humanity from this planetary prison. Without disclosure, humanity will not see the light of day. At Farsight, we are only saying that people need to be told the truth. That is all. We are not arguing about what humanity should do with this information. We believe in free will, and we believe that once humanity knows the full extent of what is going on, they will make their own decisions as to what to do about it. We are willing to help, of course, but our role is educational, not manipulative. Telling people the truth is all that we want to do. But now, the major problem with disclosure is the human collaborators, who work with the bad ETs to manipulate and control the human population. With every step in the direction of disclosure, there is always pushback from the human collaborators. Sometimes the human collaborators know how they are being manipulated by seen or unseen forces, especially when bribes or lucrative contracts are involved. But other times the human collaborators don't even know how they are being manipulated. Regardless of how much the human collaborators know consciously about how they are being manipulated, it is interesting for us at Farsight to know if it is worth their while. That is, What do the human collaborators who assist the bad ETs in managing the human population on this planet actually get from those bad ETs? That is what we want to find out from this study. Are the human collaborators being given any special treatment in things that really matter? More specifically, if the human collaborators are helping to maintain humanity's containment on this prison planet, do the human collaborators get released from the prison planet themselves? Or do they simply remain as prisoners to be recycled back into this prison after their physical deaths? Do they get out? Or do they just get kicked in the teeth like everyone else once their collaboration activities are completed? In short, are they rewarded for being collaborators with the bad ETs? Well, we found out, and now you will find out what happens to those collaborators. I am Courtney Brown, Director of Farsight. At Farsight, we study a perceptual process known as remote viewing. Remote viewing is a mental process that is done using highly structured methodologies that are derived from those developed by the United States military and used for espionage purposes. But Farsight is civilian, and we use remote viewing for scientific experiments and for exploration. This new project conducted at Farsight employs remote viewers who are among the most experienced and highly trained viewers existing today. The remote viewers all describe much the same thing, all corroborating reports, and it is worth emphasizing that the remote viewing was done totally blind, and none of the remote viewers communicated with one another about the project during the data collection phase. Even their final presentations were recorded on video with no one else in the room. This is not science fiction, told through riveting remote viewing conducted under clean, defendable, scientific conditions. This is as real as it gets. Well, every remote viewing project starts with a target. The target becomes the center of attention for the remote viewers. Now, obviously, none of the remote viewers for any project done at Farsight, including the one you are watching now, knew the target or the nature of the project when they did their work. They were only told the target after all of their data were submitted, including their work on video. Now, for the target of this study, we have two focuses and 2 time points. We focus on political and military leadership that has been instrumental in slowing or disabling the disclosure process for a very long time. On the political side, we focus on Representative Mike Turner, chair of the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence in the U.S. House of Representatives. Now, first, our remote viewers hone in on the time when Mike Turner is actively working on the House Intelligence Committee to restrict UAP, UFO disclosure, and the amendment to the defense bill in December of 2023. That is the first time point that we examine with respect to the activities of Mike Turner. Now, the second time point is the moment of his physical death along a timeline in which the target subject, which is Mike Turner, continues to support within professional settings a broad secrecy agenda regarding the UAP, UFO disclosure by the United States government throughout all of 2024. Now, understand that we both hope and expect Mike Turner to live a long and happy life. But, as is true for all humans, he will eventually die. And we are interested in what happens to him after he dies. Is he greeted by the bad ETs, given a pat on the back for a job well done, and released from this prison planet? Or does he hit the death traps that we have investigated so thoroughly at Farsight in our other projects, lose his memory, and then get recycled back into the prison to live yet another life of manipulation and abuse? Now, the second focus for this project turns to the military side of the equation, and we focus on the highest-ranking U.S. military officer who is fighting to maintain the secrecy over the UAP, UFO disclosure by the United States government throughout all of 2024. Now, the initial time point here is when this military officer is actively trying to influence legislative efforts to restrict the UAP UFO disclosure process in 2023. We want to see what the officer is doing and what is happening to the officer. Now, when you see the data, remember that Sometimes military officers look like civilians when working with civilians in bureaucratic settings, including normal, formal attire. They don't always wear a uniform, especially when they are not involved in combat duties. The second time point for this focus is the moment of physical death, along a timeline in which the target subject, which is the military officer, continues to support, within professional settings, a broad secrecy agenda regarding the UAP, UFO disclosure by the United States government throughout all of 2024. Now, as with Mike Turner on the political side, we want to know if this senior military officer is given any special treatment after physical death. And again, we hope and expect that this military officer lives a long and happy life. But he will eventually die, as is the fate of all living physical beings, and when that happens, what happens to the officer? Is he rewarded for his service and released from the human prison on this planet? Or is he hit by the death traps, just like everyone else, stripped of his memories and recycled like a used beer can? Friends, we just want to know what happens to the human collaborators. What do they really get out of their work as collaborators with the Bad ETs? Well, we know now, and now you will also know. Starting with a session by Intisam, and then Aziz Brown, Yeme Janae, and finally Shantae, here are our perceptions of those human leaders who collaborate with the Bad ETs. This is what is happening to them when they do their collaboration activities, and this is what happens to them after everything is said and done. This is the first time anyone on Earth ever learned about this, and everyone needs to watch it. After you watch all of the sessions, I will return to help pull everything together. But one last thing. Subject A is Representative Mike Turner. Subject B is the highest-ranking U.S. military officer who is fighting to maintain the secrecy over the UAP UFO disclosure by the United States government throughout all of 2024.